showed up just to get smacked down.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fan Battle Cast, where we talk about the matchups y'all pitch to the team. Scary. Today we have a very interesting cast today. We have Spider-Man versus Kamen Rider build. A matchup we learned that was pitched, and we kind of talked amongst the team. We talked amongst each other, and we realized that... It's alright, he'll be back. He always comes back. We kind of realized that maybe just standard for both is a little boring for a debate. Maybe not what we actually want.
Yeah.
So
Spider-Man stomps.
Yeah, Spider-Man seems way too strong.
Shut up, Kagura. Shut up.
So what we're gonna do to kind of balance that out and have a more interesting cast is we are actually going to give both of them everything. So Spider-Man's gonna have all of his powered up forms. You know, I'll let them explain better. They got a better idea. But basically, it's composite Peter Parker versus composite Kamen Rider build. Just to quickly introduce everyone, we have Dark Lore Master, the one who is representing Kamen Rider build today. Say hi.
Hello, everyone.
We have
Hello.
CEO of Dino AIDS, another big Kamen Rider fan.
Hello.
We have Paul. Why are you here?
Hello, I am representing Spider-Man in a supporting role.
And we have Kagura.
Plus, I just want to watch his funeral.
That
yes,
too.
I am here. I am a big SMT fan. SMT has nothing to do with this.
You don't know that.
I'm like
This is
80%
composite.
sure there's a Kamen Rider and SMT
Every
crossover.
cast needs a token SMT fan, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And we have-
most casts. Yes.
The lovely, intelligent, delightful Saul, who is having some internet issues right now, so he might be popping in and out. And that might be a little complicated because he's actually the one representing Composite Spider-Man, but you know, that's alright. We'll let it rock. We'll figure out how
He's having issues with his web.
Alright.
Oh.
He's having issues with the web.
Dark, you are so lucky that Spider-Man is not in base form, because he would have stomped.
Yeah. We had to put a bunch of limiters on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for Saul to come back, Dark Lore Master, could you briefly go over how we're compositing Kamen Rider build?
Okay, so due to the fact that Kamen Rider build is kind of one of the newer riders, his series came out back in 2017, but there are certain non-canon stuff, like there was a Build and Kamen Rider Zeo crossover movie that is deliberately non-canon, but that will be included, as well as he will be getting different stuff from the Kamen Rider toy line, which includes stuff like the Legend Rider series, which allows you to use a build driver in order to henshin into previous riders. So Build will be getting those, as well as any powers that the previous riders had attained. However, I'm going to be putting a limit by not allowing that Build to henshin into different Legend Riders that they had previously had. Because at that point, I'm just repping Decade, which doesn't really sound like a lot of fun.
All right. So I'll kind of go over briefly how Peter Parker is working this one. It's not literally composite Spider-Man, as in, like, every version of Spider-Man. Like, we're not talking about any Miles stuff. We're not talking about any, like, Gwen Stacy stuff. It's more specifically, composite Peter Parker. So anything 616 has ever done, or anything an alternate version of Peter Parker has achieved. Because we were thinking that'd be the most fair way to do this. In hindsight, maybe that was a bit too much. We could have just gone with everything 616 has done, because that's already plenty. But you know, it's too late. Just like Death Battle, once we make a plan, we commit to it. So we're going composite Peter Parker.
No,
If his
Spider-Man
initials are
doesn't.
PP, he gets in.
Spider-Man doesn't get the giant robot. No.
Is that what's the name of the leopard on Spider-Man?
Takuya Yamashiro.
He is not a Peter Parker. Can't have it.
He doesn't get the giant robot. That is so sad.
You see, that translates to Peter Parker in Japanese. We just don't know it.
But it would have been cool to have the giant robot.
Does Kamen Rider Build have a giant robot?
Yeah, we will have a giant robot eventually. Just you all wait.
Doesn't he fight
Okay.
giant robots?
Does Kamen Rider Build have a giant robot?
Base build doesn't, but maybe composite build might. Who knows? You'll have to see.
Actually, I'm of course not representing Peter Parker debating, but Peter did in one of the more recent comics a few years back, did briefly get a giant sentinel that he
Well, all right
briefly
then.
owned
There we
himself,
go.
that he called the Spider Bots, but it only lasted 2 issues. But he did have it.
That, by our
Unfortunately.
standards, that's perfectly valid.
Spider-Man gets a giant robot. We're saved.
So we'll see if Saul brings it up, though.
So-
I don't want to step on any toes.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right.
All right, so Saul, are you here with us?
And he's
Alright.
gone.
And he's
Alright.
he's gone again. Oh my god.
It almost felt like he left.
Alright,
because he was asking.
Dark, actually, why don't you explain who Kamen Rider Build is?
Yeah, give us some backstory on Kamen Rider build. Like, a lot of
Alright.
people know who Spider-Man is. We know
Hello.
Peter. Hello, Saul.
Okay.
Oh, he's here.
Alright,
I'm alive. Sorry about that.
We've already explained
internet.
your situation, and we've kind of explained how we're compositing Peter Parker.
Yeah, so just to explain, as I will be the one debater for Peter Parker, assuming that nothing else happens today, which you never know. Basically, it's any version of Peter Parker, so kind of different Spider-Mans, but we won't be including stuff like Superior Spider-Man, because Otto Octavius, or Miles Morales, or Gwen Stacy, but any temporary power-ups that maybe the main Spider-Man has had, or like the other universe versions of Peter Parker are all fair game.
All right.
All right.
alright.
Sadly, no Leopardon.
Alright, I'm just gonna give a quick rundown on who Kiryu Sento is. Basically, Sento is Kamen Rider Build. He is so Build is a genius scientist who he's a genius scientist who currently has no memories. He can't remember anything past the last year of his life. And the main plot of Build is trying to figure out who Sento is, as well as figuring out what the Skywall is. Basically, about 10 years ago, the first manned trip to Mars happened, and while there, one of the astronauts found a box, and when the astronaut brought it to Earth, he opened it, and then from there, a massive 3-way wall separated Japan into 3 countries, as well as enraging certain people that who watched the skybox being opened, and caused them to basically become leaders of these nations, and then they would be aggravated to the point where they will not work with each other in order to they won't work with each other in order to try and reunite Japan. So so you have to deal with the authoritative government, as well as Sento trying to figure out who he is. Throw on top of that, Sento finds a guy named Ryuga Banjo. He was accused of a crime he did not commit, murdering a man named Takumi Katsuragi. And now Build has to try and track down who did the murder, who actually did the murder, in order to clear Banjo's name. However, the main twist of
It
Build
just keeps going.
yeah, I know. Kamen Rider is a very complicated series, but the main twist of the series is that Kiryu Sento is actually Takumi Katsuragi, the man who Banjo murdered. Essentially, what happened was the main villain of Build, a man named Evold, basically lured 2 guys to Katsuragi's apartment building, and then he knocked out the real Katsuragi. The one guy who came there, he just murdered him and then changed his face to look like Takumi Katsuragi, and then just left it there for Banjo to find. Well, he would then take Katsuragi, swap his face with the other guy he killed, and then just basically parade him, and then basically just take him in order to basically manipulate Sento in order to become a hero and do a bunch of stuff in order for him to eventually gain more power and destroy the Earth.
All right.
Yeah.
Was anyone else hearing those like weird distortion sounds, or was that just me?
Yeah, that
I
was.
heard it
I
too.
also
Yeah.
heard it.
Gave me FNAF vibes.
Yeah.
FNAF. Is the FNAF animatronic living with you, Dark?
Okay, look, I'm sorry guys, between the last cast and now I got Springtrap by Springtrap, and now I'm stuck.
I'm gonna kick you I'm gonna just.
Alright.
Alright. Can you try talking again real quick?
Hello, I'm back.
Nope, that's still.
Oh, still
Yeah.
there.
I'm gonna kick you while Saul does his 60 seconds, and then I'll have you rejoin. The stream is going great.
Otto Octavius is sabotaging our cast.
Otto Octavius.
Literally.
So Saul, if you have 60 seconds to describe how powerful you think Composite Spider-Man is, what would you say about him?
As you might imagine, Marvel writers just absolutely hate Peter Parker, so they just compensate it by giving every single version of him just every single different types of powers. There are so many different versions of Peter Parker with so many different powers, from your kind of standard that you might just assume from like video games, like the Marvel Avengers game, the Marvel Insomniac Spider-Man, to even the Lego Spider-Man games. They put this man through a lot. In comics, he's had the powers of the Juggernaut. He's had a suit built by Doctor Doom. He's had been trained in Doctor Strange's magic at one point. He's become a zombie in Marvel Zombies and gained the power cosmic after he ate the Silver Surfer and then went on to eat Galactus. He's been granted powers of high-tier characters like the Beyonder and was gifted by managing the Nexus, a power to fight the Nexus of Realities, which is the big Marvel cosmology thingy. It's weird. There are so many different forms of Peter Parker. There's a universe where he became the Hulk. There is a universe where he got became the King in Black, which is what the Nell thing was. And there's even a Cosmic Spider-Man, which has a bunch of hacks and powers. Peter Parker is crazy, and let it rest.
All right, yeah, he's done. He's like the Mickey Mouse of Marvel. I feel he's basically done everything with everyone.
He gets around.
Oh
Yeah.
my. Too
Yeah.
bad. It's unfortunate that Marvel editorial hates Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
They-
only he had one more day to convince them to give him a break or something.
Now, I'm not a professional writer, so
They
take my
just
opinion
give
with a
him
grain
all
of
his
salt.
sins past.
Is it why? I don't know why his story is so hard to write and is so misunderstood. I feel like they're like, he has to struggle, and that's the only thing the
they
writers
just like
heard.
making him suffer. Yeah, they just like making him suffer. They can't keep Peter Parker happy.
Alright. Dark Lore Master, you're up against basically every Marvel
entire-
herald. So what does Kamen Rider Build bringing to the table to compete with that?
All right. Do I have a 60 cent? Oh, there we go. All right. So, Kamen Rider is one of the most BS franchises in fiction, to be frank. Sento has so many different powers and abilities to work with. He is easily the smartest Kamen Rider in all of the franchise. And Kamen Rider isn't just capped at the franchise itself. It's also crossed over with many other franchises. Like, for example, it's crossed over with Marvel, Ultraman, Super Sentai. Actually, Kamen Rider and Super Sentai basically exist in the same universe. Sento has even interacted with higher dimensions, our own reality, and he has so many different powers and abilities that he should be able to systematically take down every single advantage that Peter has until eventually he's got nothing in comparison to the powers of Kiryu Sento and Kamen Rider Build. So in the end, he's going to have Kiryu Sento's will have the winning formula and be the one to take down this spider.
That was really weird. The timer was wrong on my end. But anyway, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, I do think it's interesting. Weirdly, Composite Spider-Man makes a little bit more sense because it's just kind of like he gets the powers of what a bunch of other heroes also have. Kamen Rider Build, you say he's like crossover with a bunch of different franchises. Like, so what kind of franchises are we talking here? What kind of stuff does that give it? Well, I guess we're going to talk about Spider-Man versus Build. Maybe it'd make more sense to kind of talk about what Build has to work with generally first. Like, what's his standard toolkit looking like?
Yeah. Okay. Can you bring up the GIF Kamen Rider Build Henshin?
Yes.
All right. So this is Kiryu Sento. As you can see, around his belt, he has something known as the Build Driver. What that allows him to do is it has two spots for these bottles filled with something known as the nebula gas. When shaken, he can then put them into the driver and then use the hand crank on the driver as well in order to transform into a Kamen Rider. And the most standard bottles that Build uses is the Rabbit and Tank bottles. However, Build has plenty of other bottles like the Gorilla and Diamond bottles or the Hawk and Gatling bottles. He has tons of different stuff. He has tons of different abilities that he can bring forth using these two bottles. And he can even mix and match them in order to have different powers. Like, for example, he can mix together the vacuum cleaner and Hawk bottle in order to basically be able to fly around and suck up basically anything that he wants. However, he does have higher forms that grant him stronger abilities, like the Sparkling bottle, which basically gives him an upgraded version of Rabbit and Tank. The Hazard trigger, which basically which gives him a massive power up. However, in turn, he loses basically all sense of himself and is basically just a rampaging monster. He has tamed this with a special bottle that allows him to that basically channels the power of either full Rabbit or full Tank in order to basically be fast or strong. However, his final form is, can you bring up Build Genius? So his final form is known as Build Genius. I know it looks dumb, but basically this is a form that has the powers of every single bottle within it, as well as basically allows him to have perfect control over your genetics, so long as he has the proper formula. He typically only uses this to heal people that are affected by the nebula gas, basically the main evil thing within Kamen Rider Build. However, there's technically no restrictions, just changing somebody's genetic in order to give them super cancer.
All right then.
What's this form called?
Kamen Rider Build Genius. Being super smart is basically Sento's entire thing. He can basically just build entire inventions overnight, or different things that perfectly bring out the powers that exist within certain bottles. Like, for example, one of his combo bottles is the Pirate and Train bottles. Using that, he can essentially bring forth a bow that fully brings forth the power of both the Pirate and the Train bottles.
I gotta ask a question.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a dumb question because I don't know Kamen Rider at all. Which is like, how do they fight? Like, is he like a Power Ranger where he fights with martial arts? Does he fight like Iron Man where he's flying and shooting lasers? Like, what does it look like when he fights someone?
Basically both. Also, just saying, fighting like a Power Ranger. No, Power Rangers fight like Kamen Riders. Okay, get your facts straight. But
I didn't know.
Power Rangers fight like drunk Kamen Riders.
Actually, Kamen Riders fight like Spider-Man. So boom.
Okay, whatever.
And turtles fight with honor.
So the main way that Kamen Riders tend to fight is they just go like they go into like fist fights, but like if need be, they can always just bring forth different powers at any time. So, like for example, when Build has the Hawk and Gatling bottle equipped, he will start flying around and using the Gatling gun at his disposal. Like, he's not an idiot where he wouldn't use a power when it's deemed necessary. However, he tends to mostly go hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, that makes sense. So it seems like, based on the 60-second arguments, the general idea with how this debate goes is Spider-Man has a lot of nonsense powers, but Kamen Rider has a lot of counters to those powers. So the prevalent question to me is like, Saul, what's a good example of like a really strong ability that Spider-Man has when he's composited that is gonna let him win?
Charlotte, I'll just go into maybe I'll just start a little small with some of the forms that I can talk about. let's talk about one of my favorite Spider-Mans ever, Zombie Spider-Man. So, have you ever heard of a thing called Marvel Zombies? It was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Peter Parker, he ended up as one of the people turned into a zombie. And basically, it gives him this hunger virus, which is a terrifying concept. Could you bring up Hunger Virus Explained?
Someone in the
Was
chat
it-
is wondering if we're compositing all media's Peter Parker or just comics Peter Parker.
I took this as all media.
Okay.
I have a question.
Was it?
I'm
Can I
sorry.
ask a-
What scan did you want me to bring up again?
Hunger Virus Explained. It's the. It should be one of the first ones I sent to you.
Is it Marvel Zombie?
So basically, to explain, because the panel's really big, Reed Richards starts to experiment with one of the zombies, and he finds out that they are. This infection is a. It transforms, it consumes organic matter. Like most bodily functions shut down, they're no longer necessary to work, but all mobility still remains intact, and it's described as this weird multi-dimensional virus, which can infect robots like the Vision, and has even been able to infect beings of pure energy like the like Galactus and even the Watcher. You might be able to bring up virus infects the Watcher. The panel
Yeah,
got
sure,
cut
but
off
that was the
halfway.
one that was that was the broken one. They've eaten half
That's
of the
fine.
panel.
Yeah, yeah. So as you can see, even beings of pure energy can be infected. As a zombie, Peter Parker gets his own zombie sense, which is basically he ends up in the kind of a different Marvel universe, and he fights Mysterio, and he's able to break through Mysterio's illusions by sensing his brain and his insides and stuff. But one of the major things he gets is the power cosmic. Yeah, this is his zombie sense. He can detect the presence of meat, which is a pretty crazy feat when you know Mysterio is capable of fooling both the audio and the visual senses down to even people like Wolverine have been unable to break through his illusions. But they eat the Silver Surfer and Galactus at one point and get the power cosmic. To explain a little bit, because some people might be a little bit confused, the power cosmic was stated in one of the Annihilation War comics to replace the aura or the soul of the reader. Oh, not the reader, the fucking person. So you are soulless while you have the power cosmic. It's pretty consistent with the mainline stuff as well. Zombies can be pretty they just do normal blasting and flying and all that. It's not because the zombies can't access or know how to access these abilities, but they're zombies. They want to eat people. So the most easiest method for them is blasting people with energy sources. But with the power cosmic, Spider-Man can, of course, fire energy beams. He can fly. He can alter his size. He can control all matter, allowing them to alter the molecules of living and inanimate objects to do whatever he pleases. Whether it's permanently turning you invisible, melting people, or affecting even intangible people and creating life. He's able to peer into the minds of others and have a telepathic battle with people. He can create force fields, which are strong enough to block attacks from people like The Thing and Thor, who are quite high tiers. Or even his Marvel Comics, bro. Yeah, we're going to get into that. For more esoteric powers, he's able to manipulate gravity and the memories of people. He's able to modify other people's powers and just mess with them. He's able to BFR people through time travel stuff, and obviously time travel himself. And even the mere presence of someone with the power cosmic allows them to mess with reality, which is strange. As you might imagine.
Yeah.
You can influence causality, so you can influence the past, present, and future of all realities at once, and you can even erase people from history itself.
That's pretty strong.
And that's zombie.
I have a question. I think that it's kind of important.
Yeah, go on.
So, are we treating this like he has all these powers at once, or he can swap between them? Because I feel like if he has the hunger virus the entire time, that could even be a bit of a disadvantage because it makes them act irrationally.
There's ways for him to nullify his own hunger virus.
Well, I still So they have everything.
Yeah.
He has everything at once.
That's what I was taking it as, and the hunger virus shouldn't be an issue here because there are different versions of Peter Parker who resist like mind stuff, which is what the hunger virus is.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. Like the hunger virus, it's great and all, but that's also kind of a disadvantage to Peter,
Yeah, but
as you know.
there's ways to get rid of the hunger virus, and Peter Parker with all of these forms are way too smart to not realize that fact,
Yeah. Could he cure the hunger virus with his composite powers?
Yeah, he has the actual zombie Peter Parker owns a vaccine which suppresses the hunger
I
and
just feel
allows
like
them to have control.
I feel like a composite Spider-Man would like get rid of the zombie stuff like from them, and like when they
Probably.
know it's like I don't think it's really going to be a factor in the fight. Well, like no,
Cosmic
maybe
stuff
like
very
the
much is.
maybe like the power maybe like the power cosmic stuff would still be there, but like I don't think he would keep the hunger virus inside him if he has like the other like reality warping powers. He'd be like, "Oh, the hunger virus is inside me. That's gone now."
Is
because
this like
that
an ethics argument? Like Spider-Man would be too good to use the zombie virus abilities?
I mean, it's
Well,
more like the hunger virus would be more of a detriment to him because it would cause him to act irrational.
I would argue
He always
no.
acts irrational. He's Peter Parker.
I would argue no for a couple of reasons because like there's a bunch of versions of Peter Parker who get like cosmic sense, cosmic awareness, right? They know a lot of what's going on and they're able to like affect the metatextual reality and stuff of their own structure. They can manipulate matter, change their biology.
Yeah, but
I-
Spider-Man's goal in a lot of like Marvel zombies stories is to get rid of the zombie virus inside him. He does not want it. If he has the ability to get rid of it, I think he would just get rid of it with a snap of his fingers.
Maybe not, because there's also a lot of other versions of Peter Parker who are like evil and messed up, who would be fine harnessing this power.
So she like a morally gray like version since
Yeah,
every version is
we-
composite.
Yes,
Evil!
since every version is composite, this is basically just a morally grey, because there are versions of Peter Parker who are just killers and like assassins in their worlds. They are just bad people.
Okay.
Alright, I guess I should start bringing up some crazy stuff as well.
Yeah, so what does Kamen Rider Build have to compete with someone who has the power cosmic? That's a good way to start this.
Alright, can you bring up another Kuga?
Another Kuga.
Real fast, do you know if Kamen Rider Build can cure zombification on his own? Because that would always just be...
Yes.
If he
could
has
just respond
biological
to it, yeah.
manipulation.
Well, yeah, he can perfectly manipulate somebody's biology with the build genius bottle. So like, and all he needs to do is touch you to do it. He doesn't even need to go into the build genius form. There was one time in the Kamen Rider Cross Z movie, he had his build driver stolen, and he was given a virus that he was going to die from. However, he just grabbed the build bottle, shoved that into him, and then he was just fine. Like, so he could just perfectly manipulate the Peter Parker's biology in order to just remove the hunger virus.
Awesome, thank you. So even if Peter didn't want to get rid of it, Build could just do it for him.
Exactly.
Mm.
But basically, here is another Kuga. Basically, the plot of Kamen Rider Zeo is that, these are the main bad guys from Kamen Rider Zeo, the Another Riders. Basically, regular people can use these things called the Ride Watches in order to transform into evil versions of Kamen Riders. They all look fucked up like this, by the way, but this is one of the more fucked up ones. But basically, another Kuga, his plan was he wanted to rule over basically everything. So his plan was he was going to make every Kamen Rider fictional, like literally fictional, and then basically transcend into the real world in order to snatch up this one kid who was basically a time anchor with his memories, and then bring him to the future, like before the Heisei era even of Kamen Rider even started, in order to then remove every single Heisei Kamen Rider from existence. and he's another Kuga because Kuga was the first Heisei rider. However, Build countered this by basically every Kamen rider is basically a multiversal constant. Like, so long as somebody remembers what a Kamen rider is, every Kamen rider will continue to exist. It doesn't even matter if Build is the one they remember. You just have to remember, oh, hey, Kamen Rider Double, I like that guy. Or just the very idea of Kamen Rider, and every single Kamen Rider will still continue to exist. Literally, Sento had been erased from fiction itself. And yet he still came back because of this, and even summoned basically every single Kamen Rider alongside Kamen Rider CL in order to basically just beat the shit out of another Kuga.
Alright, so that's two casts in a row where we have to figure out if the opponent can deal with memory regeneration.
No, it's not even that, like... It's not even the fact that you need to forget every single Kamen Rider. You also need to forget everything that Kamen Rider had inspired throughout its over 50 years of runtime. And as well as basically so long as memory or history exists, Kamen Riders will continue to exist.
Wait, clarification. Are we talking from an in-universe perspective or from, like... Because us, the viewers, know who Kamen Rider is, Kamen Rider will always exist.
Both at the exact same time. Like,
alright then, that's pretty good regen.
Yeah, like, literally. And, okay, wait, can you bring up the W Ride Watch or the Double Ride Watch? I can't remember which one I put it down as.
Yeah.
Okay. So, partway through the movie of the Zio and Build crossover movie, basically, the plot of the movie was that Build and Kamen Rider Zio were summoned forth to the real world by a wish from this one kid named Akaru, by something known as an Imagine, the villains from Kamen Rider Den-O, I believe it was. He wished that Kamen Riders were real, so then Zio and Build became real. However, partway through the movie, they got sent back to the fictional Kamen Rider universe. However, they were able to ascend back into our world via using the Double Ride Watch. Essentially, what happened was they were given the Double Ride Watch while they were in the real world. And since the Double Ride Watch is... since the double ride watch was from the real world, they were able to hold on to it, force their energy into it, and then they were able to ascend to our own real world in order to continue fighting another Kuga.
So basically, we need amnesia on a multiversal level for
you need to
no longer exist. No.
And you need to also erase the concept of, like, humanity's history, because so long as history exists, memories will exist, and so long as memories exist, Kamen Riders will exist.
This is like even more broken version of Uncle Sam from DC.
Basically.
Yeah.
Very broken.
Okay, I asked because Spider-Man knows this guy. You might have heard of him. His name is Mephisto. And there is this time...
Wait, are we... Is Mephisto part of Spider-Man's arsenal? Like, in the middle of the fight, he's gonna make a deal with him?
That wouldn't even work on him, because it's not just that he needs to erase the history. He needs to know that he needs to do that. Like,
what if Build summons Mephisto and makes a deal with him to get rid of the idea of erasing the idea of Kamen Riders?
No, literally, something that Kiryu could do is he could ascend to our own real world and time travel back to when Spider-Man was created and first publicated by Marvel, and then stop him from being made. Literally, bring up Build Time Machine.
I think Saul has something to say.
Okay, yes.
Okay, we're getting into this. Can you pull up How to Read Comics the Marvel Way?
Yes.
What?
How to Read Comics the Marvel Way was a time that Spider-Man transcended from his own comic book. he just transcended not only his own comic book, he transcended above every single comic book in existence.
But he's still in the comic book.
And
Trapped in the airline passenger safety manual
and there,
for
and there are,
decades.
he did that to Mysterio. He transcends over like all comics, all Marvel comics, and not just Marvel, by the way. There are cameos in this comic from like what's clearly meant to be like anime and manga. There's like a My Hero comic in there. So yeah, if you want to go into fictional transcendent stuff, here we've got Spider-Man transcending above his own comics and all of our comics.
No, that's not the point. I'm asking if he can enter our own real world.
He can.
Are you, Saul, a character in Spider-Man? Because I am a character in Kamen Rider, technically.
Well, that's what he's doing. He's transcending real comics. That is messing with our...
I actually read this comic, and there's literally a part where he goes to the boardroom where the first Spider-Man comic is being drawn.
Yeah, he goes to the boardroom and he's like, hey, y'all.
So if Kamen Rider tries to go and stop Stan Lee and Steve Ditko from making the first Spider-Man comic ever, Spider-Man himself will just show up out of nowhere and say, "Nah,
And then he'll put Kamen Rider back into the comic book.
You can't. It's a Wonderful Life me, guy.
Because partway through the movie, he got dumped back into the fictional world, and then came back with the W Ride Watch.
Well, if they start fighting, like in the boardroom, wouldn't Stan Lee probably like die as just like collateral of the fight happening?
There should be ways for him to like mess with reality and stuff. It gets weird and esoteric at that point. But with the how to read comics the Marvel way, I think it's funny to bring up now because he brought up the fact of like he knows this guy called Mephisto. He can't technically pull Mephisto out of a comic.
But why even
but he needs to know to
why
erase the history of all of humanity as well.
Well, yes.
Why even bother with Mephisto? I mean, if
he should be able to do that, because can you bring up beyond the Spider-Man?
If Spider-Man can pull out any character from the comics, then why even do Mephisto? I mean, he could just pull out a Celestial or Galactus.
I brought Mephisto did, fight Galactus and threaten all of reality. Let's not forget.
I think we're far past that now. So basically, there was this one really funny time that Spider-Man was granted the powers of the Beyonder. And he does actually use the powers of the Beyonder to, like, mess and write reality. He, like, there we go, this should be coming up now. He, like, prevents Uncle Ben's death and ends up, like, rewriting the universe. So he should be able to harness the powers of the Beyonder, which includes stuff like higher dimensional existence, as the Beyonder is stated to be an infinite dimensional being, but we are way past that by that point, and complete omnipresence and, like, relative omniscience. I can get into it a little bit more if needed. He can perceive levels of activity inaccessible to people like lower than him. He's able to transport through realities and teleport. His true form is just pure energy, so you're going to need a lot to put him down. He can divide his consciousness in half and like just mess with people like that. He's able to shapeshift, transmute, telekinesis, give people powers, turn intangible, read people's minds, heal other people. He can look into the past and just like he saw the Beyonder saw Hulk's backstory just by like, I'm just gonna have this happen. He's able to take people in different time streams, cause full paralysis, open portals, and bring people back to life, mess with memories, mess with like your feelings, age people up, take away your powers, manipulate gravity, explode you just because he can do that. He's able to mess with technology, deconstruct people in a flick of an eyelash. It's like the Alien X statement, but this time it comes from Reed Richards talking about the Beyonder. He's able to like basically, people with the Beyonder power, because it's the Beyonder, see reality as not real, with everything existing the way it does because the Beyonder wills it to be so, and that his imagination is virtually indistinguishable from reality, so he can just change the flow of existence and just whatever he wants to happen. He can BFR you into like a different body, a different form, erase you from reality. He can like, there's so much he can do. He can copy people's powers as well, by the way.
I think doesn't Beyonder himself also have some meta abilities? Like I think in the recent like
Yeah.
Blue Marvel like fought Beyonder and like Beyonder was like ripping apart the comic panel or something.
Yeah, he's able to do stuff like that, and he's also created stuff which are like they're like engines which are machines that function whole events from individual realities and recontextualize them into different frameworks of others.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say he summons like Mephisto, right? And then he tricks Mephisto into thinking that that he likes Paul, and then sacrifices Paul instead of his marriage.
We were so close to not talking about
Okay.
Paul this cast.
And
Okay.
also, there's more stuff about the Beyonder. Like, they are just
Okay.
able to, like, they see the base information of reality and the narrative of existence itself, and can mess with it. This is when, funny enough, Molecule Man got the Beyonder powers, which apparently this man is giving away his powers for free. They
Right.
are residents of outside of like the omniverse itself. Like they transcend the in-betweener, which is like the function of like the barrier between dichotomes and like the concept of concepts.
Okay, I actually do have a counter to this.
Alright.
Remind me, one of the most iconic moments with Beyonder is that his powers got stolen by Doctor Doom using the power siphon in order to then gain his powers in turn, correct?
Yes.
I believe.
Can you bring
Yeah,
up build
that was in
bottles?
Secret Wars.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it happened in Secret Wars.
Build bottles? Okay, found
Yes.
it.
So these are the bottles that are seen throughout Kamen Rider Build. Essentially, how they work is they contain the nebula gas seen created from the skywall. One of the powers is that they suck up the gas. However, they have not just sucked up the gas from the nebula, nebula gas. They have also sucked up the powers of other Kamen Riders, like in the end credit scene for X8 True Ending. Build was able to suck up all of X8's powers into a singular bottle, which he could then use later. Like, he can use it instantly after stealing it. So he could just steal the Beyonder's powers, shove that into his build driver, and then just gain the powers of the Beyonder for himself.
If I remember that Spider-Man comic correctly, I think that is actually how Peter lost those powers. Like, he only had them for, like, a billionth of a second, and then Doctor Doom took them, so... You might actually be onto something here.
But then obviously it becomes a lot more weirder with like comp Spider-Man, because different Spider-Mans have different resistances to different things. Like what one Spider-Man is weak to, like power stealing, another Spider-Man has resisted, you know?
Shouldn't it just be like contained to those specific powers then? So like the powers that can't be stolen would be like safe, however powers that can be stolen would be stolen, like the Beyonder powers.
This is where you get weird with comp characters, right? Because they're not individual powers. It's not. We're not like there's just one version of Peter Parker with all those powers and all those resistances. It's not like the powers are segmented between like here's a part of Zombie, here's a part of the Beyonder version. They are just all Peter Parker at the end of the day.
I have a really important question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if this is one that you don't really answer to, okay, but I do think it's worth asking. Does Kamen Rider exist in the Marvel Universe? Like in any form, recognition, referenced, what have you?
Yeah, there have been some Kamen Rider crossovers. Stan Lee is actually written down as a fan of Super Sentai, which canonically exists within the Kamen Rider universe. So, like, yes.
Thank you. Good to know.
Wait, wasn't there like a common, just like a Ichigo Marvel comic series?
Yeah, I think there was actually. I'd have to look more into that, but yeah, I think there is one.
What's the first Kamen Rider?
Kamen Rider
Ichigo.
Like, when did Kamen Rider Ichigo like come out?
1971. It was April, I believe.
Okay.
Also, I got a quick question, because like I've already mentioned that all this omniscience, all this powerful knowledge and stuff. What would be stopping from like this comp version of Peter Parker from either destroying or removing the bottles from reality?
Well, I mean, again, the existence erasure from Kuga could not erase both Sento, the build driver, and the build bottles he used to get his powers from.
Interesting. So what about them being BFR'd away?
Well, okay, actually, I do have something. Could you bring up Kamen Rider Gain, God form?
Also, I don't know if this is relevant, but Spider-Man's first comic was in 1962. So if we're talking about who's a more fundamental character in a meta perspective, Spider-Man is slightly more iconic than the franchise of Kamen Rider.
Yeah, I don't know. That's up for debate.
Take that.
Okay, but this is Kamen Rider Gain. Basically, he is God. Like, full stop. He is a god. He's BFR'd an entire parasitic species from Earth to another galaxy or another planet. He's created entire planets. He's basically an omniscient, reality warping god, and he could basically just go anywhere in reality. So if Sento got BFR'd, he could always just use the Gain bottle in order to then just teleport back to Spider-Man. Actually, this is probably.
I'm more on about the equipment being BFR'd, because with all this omniscience and knowledge, there's no reason why Peter Parker. I say Peter Parker, it's technically not Peter Parker anymore. This is just Abilities Man. If Abilities Man, like, he has this omniscience, so he has knowledge of just everything. What's stopping him from BFRing these specific equipment powers, rather than build himself?
Well, I mean, again, they're like constants within reality, so like I don't think they could be BFR'd. But like Build would already be like transformed, and like yeah, I don't.
I'm not doubting that he wouldn't be transformed, and being a constant in reality doesn't prevent you from being BFR'd. Like, that just means that they are a constant existence thing. Like, there's no reason why Abilities Man over here can't BFR these bottles to like the other side of reality, because then they are still in existence. Like, it's a bit weird. It's not a constant existence in reality isn't a BFR thing usually, you know?
Like, if Spider-Man walked up and just, like, pulled the bottles off of Build, can he do that? Like, could he just BFR them and that he could just take them?
Okay, he could just technically take them.
Like, he is Spider-Man. He could just, like, what if he just web whips them away?
I mean, yeah, but like Sento is like ungodly fast, so like he could probably just keep the bottles on him. Like,
if you want to go into speed, I can just bring up like every Marvel Herald feat ever. Then I can get this boy is immeasurable and infinite no matter what you use. Whether you have the
so is
versions
Build,
of...
and he heavily upscales an immeasurable feat. Like, what?
Yeah. So does Abilities Man.
Okay.
I kind of just came in here with the assumption both are probably going to be immeasurable. Do we want to talk about who's more immeasurable?
That will be weird.
Yeah.
Yes, because we've not dealt with anything weird today.
Yeah, we've not done with anything weird.
Yeah, we have not just gotten past metafiction abilities.
Fictional metaphysics was like our first point.
Yeah, okay.
I don't necessarily.
Actually, this probably would be a good time if I brought up like the different legend bottles that Sento can use.
Okay.
Can you bring up the legend riders image I sent you? Yeah, here we go. So I'm just gonna preface by saying these are fan-made designs. I'm just using this in order to like properly just examine who's here.
As an example.
Okay. Yeah. So currently we have Kamen Riders Double, Oz, Forze, Wizard, Gain, Drive, Ghost, and Xaid. So these guys all come with like a smorgasbord of different abilities and crazy stuff. Like for example, for Double, could you bring up Gaia Library? Yeah, so basically the Gaia Library is every single piece of information that exists on Earth. It's all recorded here. Basically all you need is a certain keyword, and then Sento can get pretty much any piece of information he could possibly want, or hell, even just looking at Spider-Man, he'd be able to get all the information he could ever need for Spider-Man. So he'd know every weakness, every memory, everything that Spider-Man has ever done. Sento would instantly know that. And on top of that, you have Gaim, who, as I mentioned before, is an omniscient reality warping god, who basically exists beyond like anything that the Kamen Rider universe has. Like, he's basically like one step below just stepping into the real world and just hanging out with like the creator of Kamen Rider, which Kamen Rider Saber did do. So yeah. And then there's also Kamen Rider X-Aid. Could you bring up Mighty Novel X?
Mighty Novel X. I heard things about this guy, actually.
Yeah.
Looks like Ink Sands.
Yeah. Basically, this is a version of... This is basically the strongest power-up that X-Aid has. And he used this against Kamen Rider Gen in his strongest form, which is also a reality warping god, basically able to control anything within existence. He was able to use this power in order to basically instantly take him out. And it's worth noting that Gem and X-Aid were at such an equal level that if they were both fighting in their strongest forms, it would take a decade to break the stalemate between them. However, this form was able to take out Gem instantly. Basically, he can control the entirety of the plot and how it plays out in every single facet. He's basically just the author at that point. He just does whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a really quick. This is I have a question for Saul. You said he could like teleport the items away, or that's what you're saying? Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I don't know if that would work because like a lot of characters in like the Kamen Rider series like have like teleporting abilities, and no one ever like really tries that, which would imply to me that it just doesn't work.
Yeah, basically every single Kamen Rider villain can teleport. Like,
that's a big assumption. That's a big assumption to make, though. Like,
no,
just because a character hasn't tried something doesn't mean it doesn't work on somebody else. Like, that's just a plot thing at that point, you know.
But like 50 years and like so many characters have had it.
Yeah, but
I could buy that maybe Kamen Riders are like durable enough that their entirety of their kit is like one piece or something like that. Like it can't be separated or something like that.
Because then you start creating like hypothetical resistances, which we don't want to do with abilities, man. Over here.
Yeah.
Something I'm wondering about, because it seems like both these guys have a lot of powers and a lot of abilities to counter each other, and it kind of like leans into the question of who could figure out how to beat the other first. So like, which one of these guys is like
he has
smarter
access to the Gaia
or
library,
craftier?
so he'd just be able to learn everything that Spider-Man can do and perfectly counter it with his abilities.
Yeah, but Spider-Man also has like cosmic awareness, so he also has like a similar just knowing everything.
Yeah.
So like, the question is, who can apply that knowledge better would be my question.
Okay, so we're going to go into the conversation of who's smarter. I'm willing to do
If I may quickly build on that, that is a little less more who's smarter and more who picks up on the other's abilities faster and figures out a way to get around them.
You said
just smarter relies more around battle IQ, and this is more logic and strategy, I think, in this case.
You said build. I just want to point that out.
Gun in the chat says you can get parts of your kit removed and still be in the Kamen Rider form.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty consistent thing that happens. People just take out their stuff in order to go into like a different form, and then they get their ass beat, and then they don't put anything in for like 5 minutes, and then they're still in that form. So like,
yeah, I'm not on about that. That's not my point, though. My point is BFR in a lot of the more important items, like the bottle stuff.
Like before he activates them?
Yeah, especially with the cosmic awareness stuff, where he would know all of this stuff without needing to access an ability.
I just like I don't know. I'm not entirely bought that would work, especially if that's like if that would like maybe if you like if you bring up a lot of like other things, but if it's like the main way he would win, I don't necessarily buy that.
So wait, what was the teleporting
Okay.
supposed to be a counter to? Is this supposed to be like Kamen Rider Build would
power
bring out the
siphon.
bottle to
The pow-
siphon the
the
Beyonder
bottle,
powers,
yeah.
and Spider-Man would
The
just
powers.
teleport away
Yeah.
the siphon?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
power siphon. It's what Doctor Doom used to steal the Beyonder's power, something similar to that.
Okay, but then my question is, why didn't the Beyonder just teleport away the power siphon when he was getting his powered siphon? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think this
Because
is
he was
getting way
caught
too
off guard.
Yeah, and this is getting way too hypothetical now because we can go into why didn't this character do this during this comic? Why didn't this character do this? Like,
Why
I
didn't the
think
character in the comic book
eventually-
be smart?
eventually we're getting into some pretty bad faith arguments where we're relying on why didn't this character do this? Are they stupid? Like,
Speaking of why the comic characters weren't smart, who do we think would use their intelligence better in this fight if they both have access to all the information, basically?
Okay,
If-
I do actually have proof for why I think Sento is smarter. Hold on. Could you bring up?
Because I know Spider-Man has like some silly intelligence statements about like something or other.
Yeah, could you bring up Build's IQ? Basically, this is a guy named Hondo, I believe it was, the Shin Kamen Rider, and he has an IQ of over 600 before he even started to get experimented on to become a cyborg and turn into a Kamen Rider. And the main point with Sento is that he is the smartest Kamen Rider. He should be way smarter than Hondo's IQ, which is over 600. Like,
That
He's
is
like
ridiculous.
at least
That is-
600 too.
at the very least, and that is double the IQ of someone like Dr. Eggman or something.
Isn't an IQ 600 impossible?
Factually twice as smart as Dr. Eggman. Good point.
Yeah.
Actually, like, and Sento constantly builds like like the main point of the Pandora's box is that it can defy the laws of physics. It's said dozens of times throughout the entirety of Build. The Pandora's box defies the laws of physics, and yet Sento fully understands how it works and even geniusly used this in order to fuse his own dimension with another dimension in order to remove a guy from reality. Like,
Okay, because I was gonna ask. While that IQ is very nice, very cute, big number, this is a death battle, not a math test. And I am asking more to their smarts as terms of in a fight, figuring out an opponent's weaknesses and ways to get around it, which is
yeah,
something
because
that
Spider-Man's
Peter, of
whole
course, is
thing.
really known
constantly
for.
in the fight. Like, again, he constantly he built the main point is that he constantly keeps coming up with genius strategies. And also,
Alright.
for your information, with the math testing, Sento can actually summon forth math, and that is like a physical thing that happens. Like, one vortex finisher he used, like, he summoned forth a parabola, I think it was, and that fucking stopped the guy in place. He couldn't move while Sento did his finisher. So, like, if this was a math test, he could just summon forth the math in order to beat
So he's
Spider-Man's
got
ass.
animation versus physics powers. He can just like do that kind of stuff.
Yes, he can. Like, again, you saw in like the Build Henshin when he was shaking those bottles, a ton of different math formulas were appearing.
Yeah.
Like, those, like, and the vortex finisher, that is proof those are physical. Those are actually happening.
As impressive as that is, Peter is great at geometry, as he said in Spider-Man No Way Home. So I don't think that would really throw
That
him
is
off
true.
too
No
much.
Way Home gives him geometry intelligence.
Geometry
Well, he's
is
just
also,
like,
if we-
whoa, he summoned forth the parabola.
Why
if we
didn't he
wanted-
use-
I'm gonna get
Why
kicked.
didn't he use geometry to save Aunt May?
If we wanted to do it off of like basic intelligence stuff, obviously I'm not going to be able to give you a direct number, but his intelligence has been Hank Pym himself has referred to Peter Parker as at least an intellectual equal to. There's a statement of him being an intellectual superior, and Hank Pym made the Infinite Avengers Mansion, which was a building with millions of floors and an interdimensional gateway based on quantum physics and like all the experimental things. But if we want to get into actual fight smarts, Peter Parker is like he is. I mean, he's fought a bunch of people. If we're using all of this, obviously, there's so many people that he's fought. But his fight in style in itself is that he relies on instinct and acting. So he like a lot of the time. Basically, there is a scan I didn't get to send it in time because there's been so much where telepaths can't predict how Peter Parker is going to react because he just does. You know, it just happens. And like he's been able to shut down people's armors in a matter of minutes. He's outsmarted a lot of different foes over the Marvel multiverse at this point, especially when we get into his other forms. Like there's some of the ones I didn't bring up, but I feel like I'm worth bringing up for like battle intelligence stuff. There's the Ghost Spider, which is when the Spirit of Vengeance inherited Peter Parker's body. He's got this cool like blue flaming skull, which obviously would give him all of the Spirit of Vengeance powers. He looks awesome, by the way. I just want to say he's one of my
this
favorite.
guy.
Oh wait,
Yeah,
Wait,
he's
wait,
lost
wait.
in the
Skin
PS4
from
game.
Spider-Man, then no one knew what it was.
can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
Spider-Man PS4.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Okay. So, this Spirit of Vengeance, Peter Parker, does he have the penance stare?
Considering like all the Spirits of Vengeance have the penance there, yeah. It's a normal
Okay,
thing for the
okay.
spirits to have.
A question for you, Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Can Sento resist soul hacks?
There's while you're thinking about that, because that might take a minute. There's also Peter Parker becoming the Juggernaut, which happened quite recently. I mean, really recently. This is when Doctor Doom's a sorcerer supreme. He teams up with Juggernaut to fight. I forgot.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the guy who gives Juggernaut his powers.
Sidorak?
Sidorak?
Yeah, Sidorak. Yeah, Sidorak. He teams up with Juggernaut to fight him, and he's like proper, like using Juggernaut's strength and speed, and he's like jumping
Yeah.
like to the top of the planet and all that. There is also King in Black, Peter Parker, which is a like alternative timeline weird thingy where he can become the King in Black. Again, very cool visual design.
I think this is the idea of like if he kept the black symbiote instead of giving it
Yeah.
up to the Brox.
Which then, if we're going off comp, there are versions of him with the black symbiote. And there's also Hulk Spider-Man. There is a version of Peter Parker who basically just became the Hulk, which is really funny.
I will say this isn't even an alternate version of Peter Parker. This is just this happened to Peter Parker for like a weekend.
Yeah.
If
Has
we also
has Peter ever had the anti-venom symbiote?
I mean, if we're
I
comping,
believe-
he has
yeah.
it in the video games.
Yeah,
PS5.
Yep.
Well, isn't that
Yeah.
like what? I guess that was kind of. I was gonna say, isn't that just like a suit? But like,
No,
oh
that
wait,
was
no. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. But
You
like,
reminded-
is it
If
the
we also
gas?
wanna go- Yeah, you go on.
Isn't like the gas in the fall bottles like? Is that a virus or is it just like random gas? Like, what is it?
Oh, okay. So the nebula gas can essentially like alter your state of consciousness in order to like kind of hypnotize you into doing things you wouldn't normally do. Like for example, again, when the Sky Wall came up and like all the leaders of the New Japans got gassed and they basically became hyper aggressive. This was even shown later in Build when one of the leaders got cured of the nebula gas, and then she was like, "Oh God, what have I done? All the people I've killed." Despite the fact she was like completely fine with like trying to murder a guy like 2 seconds ago. So it is kind of like it's more like a mind virus, if anything.
Okay.
Then
So
Peter Parker can resist mind stuff either by the Beyonder powers, who can kind of just shut off a lot of mind telepathy stuff, or Juggernaut, which, you know, Juggernaut helmet protects from mind stuff. Would be a pretty bad X-Men villain if you couldn't resist mind stuff.
It does seem
You
like
reminded me.
if
Well,
we
I
have to just
don't-
compare like how well they use their intelligence in fights, like I feel like that's Peter's whole thing. Like all like this Sinister 60 or whatever. It's a bunch of villains that are like have power comparable to him or like
He-
ways to kill him, but he just outthinks them and figures out
Actually,
exactly how to beat
I,
him.
Well,
I
that's
think
with
I
his
have-
build. His entire thing is that he thinks through every single fight.
I
He
think
was
I
able
have
to
my
beat a guy he could barely even scratch. Like,
I think I have my
again,
best,
by creating an
scam.
entire connection between an alternate reality, shoving that guy in there, and then using him as a power source in order to basically fuse two dimensions together.
You reminded me of something really important I was going to ask earlier because you mentioned when Doom became Sorcerer Supreme. The 9 lives of Spider-Man.
The nine lives
How would
of
that
Spider-Man.
factor in? When Doom became Sorcerer Supreme, I want to say a year or two ago, he didn't make Spider-Man the Sorcerer Supreme, but he gave him a new suit that literally gave him 9 lives, like 9 retries if he died, because of the villain he was fighting was that powerful. So Spider-Man, because of comp, he has a way to come back to life 9 times straight.
Well, there's a bunch of different ways that Spider-Man can come back to life in this battle. If we just want to go off of like basic stuff, there's if you go into like game stuff, there's ways for you to get like revives and retries and like the basic stuff. But there's like the Juggernaut powers, which Juggernaut can come back from just being a skeleton and continue fighting. There's the Hulk version, which all the Hulks and the Green Door stuff. There's the Ghost Spider, which Ghost Riders can regenerate from being completely obliterated. And then the Beyonders' abstractual existence, where death is not a thing in their true reality. Like, just death doesn't exist. Just isn't real. You like death? It doesn't exist. Sorry, too bad. Womp womp.
Dark.
No more death battle. It's just battle.
Question.
It's just battle.
This doesn't necessarily matter since, like you said, Spider-Man like has like so many other ways to resist the gas or whatever. But specifically with the way of doing it through the Juggernaut powers, isn't it because of like the helmet, like it stops like people from reaching into his mind? Would it really stop the gas since it's like not someone like trying to get into his mind?
Well, the Juggernaut doesn't need to breathe.
Does he not?
He does not.
Really?
Also, if you want to go into like, do characters need to breathe and stuff? Beyonder, Beyonder doesn't exist in our universe.
Well, like Juggernaut was like trapped under. This is such a minor feat, but Juggernaut was like trapped like miles underground, and because he can't fly, he didn't know what direction to go to get out. So he was just running underground for months, and he has like this inner monologue where he's like, "I don't need to breathe, but I miss breathing. I don't need to eat, but I miss eating," or something like that.
he's just the really.
He's just running, and he's real sad about it.
I also if you want to for my final intelligence thing, can we bring up Power of Love?
Oh no.
You guys might have heard of this if you've ever seen a versus YouTube short, but basically there's this little guy.
Hell?
His name is Man Thing, and in this basically Peter Parker gains what people call the power of love. It's not actually the power of love, but it's his ties to like his loved ones that let him fight what's basically a personification of the nexus of realities. And why it brings up for a intelligence combat feat thingy is that this is mainline Peter Parker. This just happened, right? This just happened. He just got these, and then he beat up the nexus of realities, and then basically by messing with the nexus of realities, obviously it did like a big reset thingy, and then the original Man Thing came back, and blah 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 blah. But he's had powers on the fly and just been able to use them. There's one Spider-Man that I didn't bring up because he's kind of outclassed here, is the Cosmic Spider-Man. He is a mainline like Spider-Man who gets the Enigma Force, and the Enigma Force is another big cosmology thing, but it lets him like do everything that I've mentioned with the Beyonder, like Beyond the Light almost. But he gained those powers and he was able to adapt fully to them, you know?
Okay.
Spider-Man isn't allowed to love. Marvel editorial won't let it.
No,
Yeah.
they really don't.
Someone
Marvel
in the chat was
editors
asking
are
about
the-
Cancerverse Spider-Man. Is that relevant at all?
I don't know.
Oh wait, no, this is the version of Spider-Man where his stuff is also radioactive, and then he did some stuff to
Yeah.
Mary Jane, and then
Oh,
she
I
died
thought
of radioactive
Cancerverse was
poison.
like the universe where they killed Death and then no one died anymore.
No, Mary Jane just got cancer because of Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
Oh
All
yeah,
right,
they're
then.
just the plastic cancer hacks.
Okay, I don't. Okay, look, actually, build is actually. Could you bring up the build is gay scan?
The what?
Wait, hold on. I had a
Build is gay.
Build is
Yes.
gay?
Okay,
I don't know if
wait,
you
hold
sent
on,
me
I'm
that.
trying to find the correct one.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Dark.
Secret weapon. Secret weapon. I had to place.
Oh,
I had to
secret
label
weapon. Okay.
Secret weapon. He is talking about a man in this scene.
So,
Oh yeah, it's kind of.
are we saying like if Peter throws Build into the Nexus of Realities, he'll also have access to the power of love? Is that where we're going with this?
Yes. Also, it is technically possible for Spider-Man to get Bill into bed and then give him cancer. I will give you that. I will give you that, Saul. I will give you that.
But Build can rewrite his own
Thank you.
genetics.
Oh yes, he could rewrite his own genetics, so Spider-Man's cancer can't take him. Okay, I'm taking that away, Saul.
Alright, his radioactive web fluid will not win him today, this time.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
There's also I did talk about web stuff because like obviously that's very irrelevant, but like the spider stuff lets him rip his like webs from his own veins to produce them. So
Dark.
weird.
Ew.
There is
Dark.
one thing that I wanted to bring up from the game because I thought this was really funny and like me as well. So
Dark, I
there's a little ability called Equalizer. For those who haven't played Insomniac, like myself, Equalizer is it's a suit ability where if it's activated, either party can one-shot each other, regardless of like how strong they are. It's just something that the game version has.
I mean, that's fun, but it doesn't matter because it sounds like they can both just
Come on,
come
man.
back from
Yeah, they both can
non-existence.
regenerate.
Well,
but it's
doesn't
really
it also
funny.
make you one shot and you die?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said.
Oh,
They
okay.
both can
Oh,
be one
maybe I
shot.
just wasn't clear.
Okay, so it basically comes down to who can hit the other first.
Real-
Ultimax,
No, but
Uh,
then they both can regenerate.
Ultimax
Oh yeah, they both can
10
regenerate from nothing.
Ultimax 10 Does Gaming was clarifying that the Cancerverse is the universe where they kill Death and no one can die. Which doesn't sound all that helpful. If Peter's in that, that's not a Peter ability, that's just a universe ability. And if
There
they're
is
in that
the most-
universe, then neither of them are dying, and the point of the fight is moot.
Does
There is
Composite-
Okay, then
also-
Bill would just
wait,
ascend to a higher dimension, go back in time to when Peter Parker was first created, and then just rip up the first Spider-Man comic and say, "Until Stan Lee, he'll never be anything in life."
Well, he can't do
There-
that
there's
because then
also
Spider-Man
the,
will just go there too.
yeah.
And
Even if you
There's
did
also
that,
the most
Stanley would just
important-
shrug and say, even if he did that, Stanley would just shrug and say, okay, I'll keep working on Fantastic Four. They could use a fifth member. Maybe I'll try that Spider-Man character.
Oh,
There
does
is also the most important form of Spider-Man, the Lego Spider-Man, which does let him like rebuild himself if he falls apart.
oh yeah.
ah.
Wait, does Comp Spider-Man scale to the cops that arrested Thanos?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I think just base Spider-Man scales to that.
Okay, I had one last really important question before we get into final debates or anything. This is truly the most important question to ask in all of this.
Mhm.
Could Kamen Rider Build crawl up the wall?
He can fly and then just like go.
That's
up to a
not
wall
crawling.
and start flying.
He could go into it, but that's not flying because Spider-Man couldn't crawl the wall. That was
What if
one
he
wall
used-
he'll
He could
never
use the
crawl.
octopus bottle in order to just like suck onto the wall and then climb. So yeah, he could. He could.
What if he used the vacuum one to like
Mm.
vacuum the wall and then like jump and hit it again and then like keep doing that?
Spider-Man watching as Kamen Rider Build becomes a Roomba and starts climbing up the wall to get his ass.
Alright. So I have another question, and this feels very low scale compared to what we were talking about. But like, is Kamen Rider Build suit like technology?
Yes, it is technologically based. Like it's kind of weird, but like essentially how it works is like after you put the bottles in and then crank it, it basically like forms these tubes that then like kind of create the entire suit, and then it collapses in. It is technological, but it is kind of like
So
it
is the
doesn't make
suit made
sense.
of like electronics, or is it made of just like solid gas or something?
Mm.
Because
Like,
my question is like Peter, and then we're getting real low scale compared to what we were talking about, but like he's hacked into like Iron Man and like the Fantastic Four defenses and stuff, and he has like drones that can remote hack stuff. Could Peter just like hack into build suit?
no, I don't think so.
Well,
Again-
what about using the Beyonder powers, which have explicitly been able to hack tech on a very wide scale? If you give me a minute, I can find the very specific stuff. But
All right. I do have one last question, Dark. It's the same question I asked you before. Can build resist soul hacks?
Right.
I don't think so. I'm trying to think, but like best I could think of is like technically he exists within like the consciousness, and then like
Well,
yeah.
wouldn't Ghost resist soul hacks, and he should have like the like ghost abilities?
Wait, no, yeah, he does. Ghost has resisted soul hacks in the past. Yeah, I kind of forgot about him considering the fact that we're kind of going pretty high scale. So I was focusing mostly on like Xaid or Gaim because they are literal reality warping gods. So yeah. Actually, there could be something within Gaim because I think he can actually like manipulate souls and such. So he could potentially just like he could potentially just pull a spawn and then just pull the spirit of vengeance from Peter Parker and then just crush it.
This is just based off of what I remember, so maybe take this with a grain of salt. Ghost is a popular matchup for what's the
Robbie Reyes.
Robbie Reyes.
Yeah, Robbie Reyes. And I do remember a lot of people saying that like even though Robbie like wins, that the penance stare specifically wouldn't work most likely. So
well, then at that point we're getting into other people's thoughts and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's kind of one of the points. I have like 8 different riders I can work with, and I get all their powers.
Yeah.
Like literally,
Another
Ghost
dumb
can summon forth
question.
the immortal soul of Harry
No,
Houdini
it's not-
in order to perform a cup and
it's
ball
not
trick for
that.
Spider-Man.
My issue just comes from the fact that it's like, well, other people have said that this Kamen Rider can resist the like with the pen and stuff.
Well,
Like,
other people
unless...
have said that composite build beats composite Spider-Man, so I guess that's just the
Yeah.
information you have to
Yeah.
work with.
Yeah.
Namely,
like-
Quick dumb question: have we seen the pen still work if quite literally you are wearing something like armor? Like I know that like with the Venom symbiote that worked because it was a sentient being that worked differently, but like he is wearing armor that obscures his eyes. How does that affect it?
If I'm gonna have to get into penance stuff, you're gonna have to give me a minute.
I mean, it's not like glasses protect you from the pen and stare. Like if
Yeah.
Bill can see out of his suit's eyes, then it can still work.
Then he
Yeah,
closes
I
his
also
eyes.
wouldn't be surprised if Ghost Rider had done a penance on like Tony Stark or whatever while he's wearing the Iron Man suit.
Maybe I haven't seen that before, so I was
Like
curious.
it works on Deadpool, and Deadpool's wearing a mask.
Well, that's a
That is true.
that's a thin cloth mask. That's not armor, is what I was asking because that's more armor. And
This
there
feels
is a
like a
difference
stretch
there.
to me.
It was an honest question to check because that would be a look into my eyes, and he just stares back and says, "My eyes are closed, Peter."
I mean, I could double check. This was not something that I thought I would need to.
Don't need to throw a dumb question.
Oh wait,
Ghost
actually,
Rider ever
actually,
forced
a
someone
funny
to open
counter
their
Dunn
eyes?
just brought up. Build has the light bulb bottle, which means he could just flashbang Peter when he tries to go for the penance stare.
Oh no.
Can you
Good
wait?
point.
Can you penance stare someone if you're blind?
I'm pretty
Ghost Rider
sure.
doesn't have any eyes. He's a skull.
I'm pretty
Well,
sure
he's
there's-
still a sight. Like, what if his what if the user's blind? Would the penance?
Let's
stare
see if
still work?
Daredevil was ever a Ghost Rider.
I don't think a ghost can be blind. I think he doesn't have the organs capable of being
Well, a ghost
damaged
can
to
be
be
blind.
blind.
Alright,
Well,
okay, guys,
yeah,
we're gonna
but
have
the
to figure
user
this out. Somebody get Johnny Blaze in here. I'll get the flashlight.
Yeah, but the
So
Was
from what
Daredevil
I'm reading
ever a
out-
Ghost Rider?
From
Yeah,
what I'm
but
reading
the-
about from what I'm reading about the pen and stare stuff, by the way, as long as you have eyes, then yeah.
Looks like Daredevil was once Ghost Rider.
Daredevil.
There we
Here's
go.
the penance there,
2024.
though.
Okay, to
Did
be
he use
fair,
the
I'm not even
penance
surprised
there?
by this. Like, every single popular hero has been a Ghost Rider at least once.
Okay,
Has
so
he used the penance there, though?
2024, possessed by the spirit of vengeance. The design shows horns obscuring his eyes. So I don't think this version could use the penance stare looking at it.
Oh, so like...
He grows
he
two massive
applies
horns
there.
where his eyes once resided.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's just...
What are we talking about again? I've lost
I
track of
have,
my
I
current
have, I have
argument.
no idea.
Could blind people use a penance there?
All right. I guess.
don't know.
So I think the crux of the argument, we're kind of talking about how they have all the powers. Like, it seems like Spider-Man has more powers, but Build has ways to kind of survive or negate some of the powers. I kind of feel like the question boils down to whose meta abilities are better. Like, we kind of had this at the very beginning, but I think, like, diving more into depth of how these interact would really lead to who's gonna win.
Agreed.
So it's
Yeah.
like... Because it seems like Build's is more like a resistance, whereas Peter's is more of like a manipulation of the medium.
Well, remember, Bill can also, like, manipulate the plot because of Mighty Novel X. So,
Okay.
it's kind of cancel out.
Saul, question for you. Can
Yeah.
Peter resist plot manipulation?
He should be able to. I need to look through a few things. I currently have 18 tabs open. So, why do you ask, to be fair?
Because Mighty Novel X manipulates the plot, and he could just manipulate the plot to say Build wins always. And if Peter cannot counter that, then he's just going to lose.
Well, Peter did counter that when he had the cosmic comic. Like, Mysterio tried to make it so that the comic just ended, and then, but that didn't work because Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mysterio had the cosmic comic at one point. It's he was able to do a lot with it, but yeah, he did try and end the comic, and it was like, nope. But also, Beyonder can manipulate the comic as well.
Yeah, like he
I've
just
already
like
mentioned
rip up the
this.
page they're on or something.
I've already mentioned his plot manipulation stuff before, where he's able to harvest the whole events from individual realities and recontextualize them into different frameworks.
So this is the climax of the fight. Like, they both jump out of the video they jump out of the death battle they're in, and they're in the real world now. What happens?
They go and beat up Ben and Chad to make it up for making them fight.
I thought
They
the
pulled the
climax
Deadpool
was
versus
if
Pinkie
he
Pie
could make
special.
Spider-Man blind or not.
That's not the crux of the argument.
Blindness. Also, if you want to go into blindness stuff, there are times where Spider-Man's been able to flash light through his own eyes. He did it against the Hulk as Cosmic Spider-Man.
Yeah, he'll just
Would that
regenerate
mean-
his eyes.
What if he's just blind and flashing light through his eyes?
There's also ways for him to adapt to stuff like that. Like the Beyonder has adaption, which if I can get it.
The
like I said, I've
Beyonder
got
has
so
always
many
been
stuff.
blind, though.
Why is Spider-Man flashing Kamen Rider?
I don't know.
Why is Kamen
God.
Rider flashing Spider-Man?
Are we ready to get into final arguments? Because I think I am.
I think
Yeah,
so.
I'm probably ready
this point.
to. So you can do your final argument first.
But before we get final arguments, I clarification real quick on how... I just need more specifics on how Kamen Rider's meta regeneration works.
I thought I explained it already, but essentially, so long as somebody remembers what a Kamen Rider is, or remembers anything that is influenced or referenced from Kamen Rider, they will continue to exist, and you cannot manipulate the memories of this because the memories of Kamen Rider are tied to the history of humanity itself, not just humanity within the specific universe that Sento exists in, but also the entire multiverse where every Kamen Rider exists, as well as any higher dimensions, which include two different real worlds. Like, legitimately, there are two different real worlds within Kamen Rider, and one is significantly higher than the other. But, yeah.
Okay. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the final arguments. I just need a refresher on how that works specifically, because that's weirdly very important to how this fight plays out.
Yeah, I know. I watched the entire Build and Zero movie in order to prepare for this. I haven't even seen Zero yet, so
I'm sorry for your loss.
yeah, I know. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to watch Zero until I watch some more Kamen Rider series. Like I just finished Ghost, my fifth Kamen Rider season today, actually. So
I'm ready when
I
everyone
guess
is to
one
go
last
into final
question,
stuff.
because I'm about to make the poll. Should it just be between Spider-Man and... I keep want to say Ichigo for some reason. Should it just be between Spider-Man or Build, or should there be some third option? Because this feels like a very weird fight.
I feel like there's grounds for there to be a stalemate option.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
I
from
wouldn't
what
be
I'm hearing
surprised if
so
this ended
far,
in a stalemate because
I think
these two are completely bullshit.
can you add a
The
stalemate?
loser is
Sure.
Ben and Chad.
I will add a stalemate option.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Final arguments.
I think Dark Lore Master should go first.
Okay, that's fair.
All right. Basically, final argument. Build should be way smarter. He should be able to utilize his intelligence and different abilities in order to be able to. He can use these different abilities in order to be able to just completely negate anything Spider-Man can do. Steal his powers in order to make sure that he always has the best powers. Can essentially rise far beyond, like literally, he can enter a higher real world. So like it is entirely theoretically possible that Spider-Man goes to the wrong real world in order to try and stop Build. He can steal powers. He should be able to completely control life. I didn't mention this, but he also has life control. He can basically just do anything he wants. And he can always just make sure that Peter always stays one step behind him in order to and eventually build up the perfect counter in order to be able to eventually take down Spider-Man. Yeah, I tried to come up with a pun, but I couldn't think of anything. This is way too complicated, man.
I'm trying to build up your arguments. All right, Saul, are you ready for your final argument?
Maybe. Okay. So from everything that I've heard, I do think that either it's going to be a stalemate or Peter Parker should win. Abilities man over here with his fictional transcendence, complete knowledge over basically everything through his powers of the Beyonder, and weird esoteric manipulation should be able to match or surpass good old Build in anything that he can do. He has all of the same powers and even more, and there's been no way to prove that Build should be able to permanently kill him. Like I said, with the abstract true forms of the Beyonder and all of the regenerative powers, you are going to have to put Spider-Man down not only like 9 times because of the suit and stuff, but multiple times over. With the Beyonder powers, which let him manipulate the plot, the reality, and it should let him either counter or match anything that Build has. Build tries to steal his powers, he can just teleport the bottles away or copy Build's own powers, and then we're back to a weird equalize where they all have powers. He's able to manipulate the reality. Like I said, the pen and stare can affect the soul. And there's other ways for him to affect the soul as well, like the Beyonder can reach into souls and mess with them. He was like able to take someone out of a soul. This is Marvel Comics we're on about. Basically, with the Peter Parker should also be way more intelligent, both in just normal smarts by being able to be compared to Hank Pym through his infinite mansion thingy, or just through fights where he's able to react instantly and just hack and do all these things. Bill just seems to have a few things that keep him a little bit below Peter Parker in this battle, while Peter Parker has literally everything he needs to either force a stalemate or win the fight. Sure, it's going to take maybe killing all of us, but there are versions of Peter Parker who would be very much happy to do so. So, looks like we're all going to die.
So what you're saying is Peter winning is the bad ending.
Ooh.
Yes.
Every day in Peter Parker's life is the bad ending.
This is genuinely the hardest matchup for me to come to a verdict on. There's just so many different factors. I'll try to give my vote first. I'm just trying to run through all their abilities one-on-one. I do think his Beyonder powers getting siphoned away is possible. I do think Spider-Man has better regeneration than Kamen Rider, because not only does he have, like... He has, like, the Doctor Doom suit, he has the Juggernaut suit, the Ghost Rider stuff. I think he's generally harder to kill no matter what you do. I think in terms of messing with the meta, I think Spider-Man has better control over that kind of thing. Because not only can he, like, come out of the comic of his own volition, he can also, like, put people into comics. And he can mess with the entire history of comics, which goes back to, like, Egyptian hieroglyphics, I'm pretty sure, in that story. So it's like, he can manipulate the entire history of art, basically, which I think the Kamen Rider brand would fall under. And even if they do it across multiple timelines, like, him being the King in Black would give him that ability to mess with things across the entire multiverse. I do think Kamen Rider's ability to mess with biology is interesting. He could get rid of, like, the zombie... That'd get rid of a lot of abilities. That could get rid of, like, his Spider Hulk abilities, his normal spider powers, the zombie powers.
Yeah. I did mention this before for clarification, but the Beyonder doesn't have a body. So it's just a thing. So
Okay, but he gets his power stolen. GG's.
Technically manipulating Peter Parker's biology isn't... It's weird because it's not a body anymore. Again, weird.
Kamen Rider Build being gay is an interesting argument, but I think Peter has more experience using the power of love than Kamen Rider Build does.
Build literally fused with the guy, though. He's literally fused with a dude. The guy he was talking about before.
I think...
Okay, I want to fuse with a guy. I don't get any props here.
I think Spider-Man has better meta manipulation even than the Kamen Rider. And I also think that...
Everyone vote for Build.
I was thinking just if they punched each other, Spider-Man would generally be more powerful. So I think...
No, Build is able to... Build is, like, outer versal. I didn't get to go into the cosmology, but, like, he is, like, outer to boundless.
But so is Marvel.
Like, everything. Okay, so they'd be even then.
But he's also the Hulk, so he can get, like, stronger.
So does Build. The entire point of Build is that, like, he basically has these things called hazard levels, which, like, throughout fights constantly increase, so he's consistently getting stronger throughout the entirety of the fight.
All
so,
right,
like,
I'll call it a tie since we clearly haven't been given enough information on that category.
There's so much to go over. I didn't know that I had to bring up the hazard level shit.
I'm gonna say Spider-Man in an extremely tight vote. So Spider-Man gets my vote. Alright, Paul, what are you thinking?
Next? Oh boy. Okay, so very quickly, since this was being asked in the chat, this is the matchup for Spidey because we don't know the pitcher, but this is what they chose. We chose Composite for the cast to make this vaguely interesting. Like, just being honest. This is not a debate.
Show that goes into, like, more about the matchup, like how it's probably intended to be, but yeah.
Did you guys want a 5-minute cast or like what we've had today?
Yeah. As far as my thoughts go, yeah, as much as I've been making a lot of jokes and mostly messing around, this still was a very interesting cast. I am slowly learning more about Kamen Rider, and this was very fun to learn. Really, I think it boils down to just not really who has the better blank or the bigger blank, but just who will figure it out first and find a way in. And being honest, really looking at this, I know Peter better than I know Build, but I'm really hearing this, and I'm honestly going to say, I think Build could take this. I just think that Spider-Man's composite powers are very impressive, but it is still Peter at the end of the day, even when he is at his best. And he doesn't learn opponents that quickly, whereas Build is very obviously great at adapting to other opponents and figuring out ways around them. I think Peter might have better battle IQ or more just strategy in general from what I heard today, but I am just really leaning Build on this one, and that's what I'm going to go with. I would not be surprised if this is a stalemate, though. But for this, I'll vote Build.
My PC died before I heard who Sean voted for, by the way.
I voted for Spider-Man.
Okay.
So we're 1-1 right now.
Yeah, we were 1-1.
All right, Kagura, what are you thinking?
Wait, Sherm, did you say Spider-Man or Stalemate? I thought you said Stalemate.
I said Spider-Man.
Okay.
I think So based off all the things that I heard, these two are absolutely insane. Their stats should be like relatively evenish, but the thing I think, I just don't think they could kill each other, just straight up. I don't think they could find a way to permanently kill the other one. I think this is gonna be a stalemate.
I think that's fair. I think that's entirely fair with everything today.
Honestly, yeah.
So, am I the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I really have to go stalemate too, but the blinding argument is very compelling. Yeah, I just don't really like. I don't think either. I haven't really heard of like a concrete way to like kill the other person from either side, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go stalemate.
All right. We will end.
One last question, Dark Lore, and this is for all the marbles. Can
Yeah.
Kamen Rider build dance?
Yes.
Great.
Let's-
Then they're
let's
even
end
there
the
too.
poll.
Darn.
Oh
wow.
We tied with Spider-Man and stalemate. So do we just
How
go
do you-
stalemate?
how-
I guess.
I don't. If we kind of vote for both, that means that's 3 stalemates and 2 Spider-Men. I guess.
And 1 build.
Okay, so I guess we go stalemate Spider-Man build.
I guess stalemate. I mean, the jury gave 2 votes for stalemate and 1 vote for Spider-Man. So I guess, regardless of this tying, which is very funny, that would be a stalemate win that they can't kill each other.
We've
Okay,
constructed a
I'm
very
fine.
interesting debate today.
I'm
What if
fine
we
with that.
just-
I'm.
That's all.
I'm
This
glad
is all second stalemate matchup.
We still just don't have
Look,
a concrete verdict.
Look, if I'm not gonna win, I'm gonna stalemate.
All right. So
Okay,
do
I guess
think-
I'll just. Okay, next cast I schedule. It's going to be an easy win for me, man. That's what's going to have to happen.
So I would like to actually talk very briefly on the merits of this specific matchup. And I will say this cast is weird, but it kind of sold me on specific aspects of the matchup. I think Cosmic Comic Peter is very silly, but if you were to go all in on Kamen Rider build and give him all this meta abilities, it would make sense to give Peter stuff like the Cosmic Comic. I don't think you would give Peter everything we've given him today. I think you would limit it to specifically 616 Peter and stuff he's done, as well as like limiting some of the stuff he's done as very like not something he should have access to. Like Beyonder
Not
powers
to-
specifically sound like something
Yeah.
that he never even had in the real world. He just kind of imagined all those powers.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, it's something that I think it's something that he did. He just lost those powers instantly.
yeah, he had the powers, and like he imagined it was like he thought about what he could do with the powers, but that wasn't actually what was really happening. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Like
I
all
think
good
like
things in Peter Parker's life, he loses them immediately.
I think giving him stuff like Cosmic Spider-Man, which we didn't even talk about, funnily enough, like Cosmic
I brought up-
Spider-Man and the Cosmic Comic Book, makes me think this matchup is actually kind of
Yeah.
genuinely interesting.
As the Marvel Comics guy, apparently, trademark, whatever. I think Peter Parker's most interesting when he's grounded. I think
Yeah.
taking away the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the friendly neighborhood bit, just kind of he meshes in with a lot of like heraldy comic stuff, and there's nothing wrong with being a high tier in comics. But Peter's whole thing is that he is this neighborhood guy who helps everyone. I think making him this, giving him like the cosmic stuff and it kind of ruins a lot of my personal appeal for him.
Well, that's
Yeah.
how I feel about Squirrel Girl.
I think that if you were to specifically make of all the Cosmic Spider-Man matchups I've heard, this is probably my favorite option.
Yeah.
If you had to do like a Cosmic Spider-Man matchup, I think this would be interesting.
I do
I
want to
still
see.
like Green Lantern Batman, but yeah, this is very fun to yap about. Like,
I guess-
this is matchup, but there's so much to discuss that's really interesting.
I guess my question is, if you were Ben Singer and you were forced to do like Kamen Rider build versus Spider-Man, how would you handle it?
Well,
Okay, genuinely, if you ask me, I just say go base for both. Like, I mean, I get that this is like really interesting to talk about like the higher tiers on both and how complicated it gets, but like I agreed with Saul on how like I'd rather Spider-Man just stay like more grounded, and I don't really like talking about like a ton of high tier stuff for Sento as well.
But
And like what?
isn't the Sento stuff like inherently high tier?
I mean, like again, the Build and Zeo crossover that's non-canon, and that's where the oh yeah, you can't erase a common writer if they exist, so long as like a memory of them exists. That's where that comes from. So it's like I don't think it's canon.
So like, where
The
would
Doomsday
like
Power.
base Kamen Rider build scale? Like, if we were doing like Kamen Rider build versus Iron Man, where would build scale?
5D and immeasurable.
Oh, okay, that's fair for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look,
Yeah.
every single Kamen Rider matchup, like 80% of Kamen Rider matchups are like stomps. So like, I kind of just learned to stop caring.
Debatable.
Yeah. Also, this is coming from like a Persona fan. Like, I've learned to stop caring about stops at this point.
yeah,
Oh, preach.
yeah.
To be fair, we do have several other Kamen Rider matchups we'll be discussing on here too.
Yeah, I know, but we have to wait for those. Like,
will say,
trust me, y'all don't know how hyped I am to talk about Gen versus Kaiba. Like, literally.
Oh, I'm so excited for that
Yeah,
one.
that'll be a really fun one.
That's gonna be so much fun.
I'm probably gonna be jurying that one because I want to learn more about it. Yay!
I will be jurying
Yeah,
there
you
too. I
also can
gotta hear
stream,
more.
so like you kind of are very useful.
yeah, I want
What
you.
am I using?
I'm rooting
Oh, yeah.
for you on that one, Dark, because I want Gem to beat Kaiba.
Yeah, Gen is like a really silly character. You know, he's a
Yeah.
goober. You know, there was one time where a guy gave him some fan mail, and then it had really good video game ideas. He got jealous, and so he gave an 8-year-old AIDS.
Right, I'm gonna have to head out because
Yeah,
obviously I've had a lot of tech issues.
All right.
Yeah, good
No
luck
problem.
with that,
I get it.
Saul.
Yeah,
Good luck.
see
Sorry,
ya.
Saul.
I will.
But yeah,
okay.
but yeah. If you're a Kamen Rider fan, we've got plenty more on the way since several of them have been pitched.
Yeah, we
And,
also have Decade versus Captain Marvelous coming up, so that's a fun one.
I was trying to think, is there any other like Spider-Man low tier Marvel stuff coming up?
Well,
Like,
there's Mayday Parker versus Jolene.
Yeah,
Oh
Mayday
yeah,
versus
gonna be
guys,
nice
Jolene
one.
is gonna be
guys,
epic.
if you really like me debating Spider-Man on the cast, you're gonna see me debate Spider-Man again.
Someone
Yeah,
similar to
except this
Spider-Man,
versus
at
a
least.
JoJo's character, so
JoJo.
If you were like, man, I really loved Saul talking about Spider-Man for 2 hours, guys, I can't believe it, but there's gonna be another one.
I guess my final thoughts on the matter is I definitely agree that there should be like a more grounded Spider-Man matchup, but I don't know if Kamen Rider Build is the one to pick if you want like a grounded Spider-Man matchup.
yeah.
will
If
say-
you,
building
if
does
you
take place
ask
on the
me,
ground.
the best grounded Spider-Man matchup to do, like after Batman, is actually a different Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider Nego. He's actually the second Kamen Rider in history, right after Ichigo. I think it's a really cool matchup.
Would that be like a sequel to Cap versus Ichigo?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. If you ask me though, personally, the Spider-Man matchup that I like the most is Spider-Man versus Crawler from My Hero Academia.
I'm sure we could talk about Spider-Man matchups we all like all day long. He's got like
Yeah.
a million of
Yeah.
them. Like, I'm a
ones
Spider-Man
we don't
Mega Man
like.
fan, for example.
Yeah,
But anyway-
but we probably should not keep
Yeah.
this cast going.
Yeah, we should
any
probably
longer.
wrap it
It's
up.
already been
Yeah.
a nightmare.
So anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Anyone want to say anything, or am I good to outro?
Watch Kamen Rider. I think you have learned exactly what you want, exactly what this franchise. Well, you don't know exactly what this franchise is about, but it's crazy. Please watch it. Please.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I'll close us
I
out.
don't know.
Wherever I go, the wind follows, and it smells like the rain. I'm Nicholas Cage.